how we're doing everything now.
Right. And last but not least, of course, we are live on YouTube. What's up, tubers?
What's up, guys? Appreciate you guys tuning in during
Yeah,
yet
man.
another quarantined week. Tired of this shit, but I'm not
Yeah.
like those protesters.
Tell you what, this week cannot move fast enough. I am uber excited for this NFL draft for many reasons, which we're going to talk a lot about the draft. Because obviously we've got quite a few picks first happening in the first 2 days of this draft. A lot of picks that could really change the outlook of this team.
There are a lot of picks that this could go so many different ways. You were just talking about beforehand, another way that things could go. So
Right. We got a new Madden athlete, another Raven is going to don the cover of the Madden game console or Madden game, whatever you want to call it.
I'll save my comments for the show.
We'll talk about that. We're going to dive in to what the Ravens are going to do with that number one pick, 28th overall. Do we stay or do we go? We'll see. And Gronk is back in the NFL. Yeah. Interesting news to happen a couple hours before we go live. So we got a lot to talk about. As always, hopefully you guys got your brew of the week. If not, you got something cold to drink. So we get ready to go live here.
We are out to the big playmakers on the Twitterverse and Facebook. We're good to go, Fred.
That's what I like to hear. All right, man. Let's not waste any time. Let's do the damn thing.
Hold, please, Fred. OBS is having a problem. There we go.
It's that time, so let's take it to the Birdland. That Baltimore home flavor is coming firsthand. Fred, Scott, and Ryan, tell them the word, man. Mixing a little BS to make it work, man. Sports, they got it. On excitement, the topic. Make sure when they toss you the ball, you don't drop it. With all that swag, you're gonna listen regardless. Here comes the pitch, so it's time to get it started. It's Birdland BS.
BS.
What's up, BSers? Fred and Scott coming to you live and remote.
Again.
Still. For a fourth time as we stay quarantined. Make sure we're doing our part to stay healthy, stay safe.
Keep
Hopefully
your
all of you out there are doing the same thing.
Keep your hind end at home, people.
Right.
Gotta stop that Rona.
Yeah, right. Let's get out of this before it lasts any longer.
I know.
We got a lot to talk about, man. This is an exciting week. I don't know about you, Scott, but like I cannot count down the minutes fast enough to get to Thursday for this NFL draft.
And you and I thought we were gonna have a short show today.
Yeah, right. We're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do a 20 or 30-minute show, and then notes. Yeah, it's a show. Whatever. We were just gonna cut out the 2-minute warning, make it feel like we're doing something shorter.
Yeah, right. Just for that. That's the only reason. That's the only thing that's leaving.
Right. But obviously, there was some news that happened with the Ravens earlier today. A new cover athlete for Madden. We're going to talk a little bit about that. See how everybody's feeling about the quote-unquote curse, if there is such a thing. Or did Mahomes break that last year? Talk a little bit about that. What are the Ravens going to do with this 28th overall pick? Are they going to stay? Are they going to go up, down, left, right, B, A, select, start? What are they going to do?
Triangle, square. What is this, a
Listen,
PlayStation
up,
game,
down,
Fred?
left, right, B, A, select, start. That was a cheat code. That sounds like an Eric DaCosta type thing to do.
I like
right?
it. An Eric DaCosta draft cheat code. I like it.
Right. And Gronk is back in the NFL. But not with the Patriots.
I was going to say, doesn't he still play for the he technically speaking still plays for the Patriots. Technically speaking.
Technically. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, we obviously want to remind you guys, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident and weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH. The Maryland Personal Injury Attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in that unfortunate situation, and I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the cost of medical bills, lost wages, and pain and suffering can all add up quickly and potentially put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that will handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, well, save this number now. I don't know what you're waiting for. I tell you every week, save it now. 855-MD-CRASH. That's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, hopefully to some future games.
I think we're gonna have to.
Scott.
I think we're gonna have to like quiz our fans next time we have a live one again. They knew what the phone number was for our previous sponsor. Let's see if they can remember MD Crashes.
Right. Maybe that'll be a trivia question for episode 150. We're getting close.
We're getting up there.
Getting close.
If we're out of quarantine by then.
143. I think we'll still be quarantined.
Yeah, we probably will be.
We'll have to throw a party virtually.
It'll be a Zoom conference.
We'll do a Zoom party. I like it.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, man. We got, like I said, we got the NFL draft coming up Thursday. We're officially 48 hours away from the draft now. Well, 48 and a half, I guess.
I was gonna say it is 48 and 23.
Another 48 hours. It's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good movie.
It was.
You remember that
movie.
from the 90s?
It was a decent movie. You know what else was a good movie? Outbreak. But I don't like Outbreak right now because it reminds me of what's happening.
Touche. Very good movie, but poor choice. Poor choice right now. But yeah, man, can't get any more excited for this as we kind of get closer and closer to this draft. Obviously, the Ravens can make a huge impact in this draft. They've got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds, 28, 55, 60, 92, and 106 overall. We'll see if those picks stay true. If the Ravens make some moves, do they gain more picks? Do they lose picks? Do they move up? Do they move down? You know they're going to do something, right? The Ravens historically, more often than not, move around in the draft and don't stand put. And I think we'll see that trend continue this year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, though, is that a lot of people think we're in a little bit different position, whereas previously we had, when we had the depth, it was depth at guys that in, a year or two were coming up on contracts. And we have a little bit of that, but a good portion of the core group, their contracts aren't going to come up for another 3 years, 2 to 3 years at a minimum. So there's a little bit of playroom here that I don't know. This could be the year that we see the Ravens trade up. It may not It may not be a lot of spots, but this could be the year, you get an impact player. Not that our window is closing or we have a short window. I think we do have a pretty decent sized window right now. But I think at the same time, you want to win you want to start that winning process as soon as you can. Well, that happened last year, right? So now you want to go that next level further. And so getting some of these guys, we've gotten some guys that are depth guys that we signed through free agency. Do you go and get somebody like, you talked about it, an inside linebacker? We made some moves. We picked up some guys through free agency, through trades, but to your point, they're more depth guys. So do we see them go that route? Do they go the route of edge rusher? Do they go the route of offensive?
Don't spoil the whole show.
I'm not. I'm saying
we'll get into it.
We could go wide receiver. There's so many different ways that you can go here, and every single one of them, I could see Eric. I could see Eric doing that. I could see Eric doing that. You could see him doing whatever.
It sounds like all our fans out there are just as excited for it as us. I mean, we got Garnett chiming in. I think he's clicking on anything that's remotely close to a Raven and just checking it out right now as we get closer. As he's final countdown. Mabster, he said it's like Xmas Eve for grown man. Couldn't have said it any better myself.
By the way,
exactly what this is.
Quick shout out to you. You actually did the inaugural podcast with Garnett.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate him having me on. It was a very in-depth conversation on a bunch of different draft picks and a bunch of different scenarios that the Ravens could go down. Best of luck to Garnett in that show. Got to check him out. If you don't follow him on Twitter yet, make sure you do. Look him up, Garnett West. He's got a good podcast going. So
yeah,
talk a little bit more about that. Sam, I see you. Sherry, hey, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while on the stream, so good to see you. James, as always. So yeah, the NFL actually earlier this week, because one of the big questions about how this whole thing is going to work is there going to be tech issues with everybody doing it virtually. Obviously, you and I do this show virtually, right? And we're battling. yeah, we're battling tech issues, but we find a way to make it. These are supposed to be, you know, a billion-dollar business that's going to have the best of the best IT professionals working with them. I can't see where tech should be an issue, but I tell you what, there was nothing but problems through this first round of mock draft that they did on Monday.
Yeah, I saw some stuff on that, and it kind of reminded me of what happened. You know, not just the tech issues, but it was more so the content issues with the NBA when they tried their whole horse challenge thing. But you saw the tech issues come up through that, right? Now, the only thing that swings a different way with this is you're not dealing, and even with the mocks, the mocks, you're dealing with individuals who have much lower income than a lot of those players on horse, by the way.
Right.
But that's the one thing that's different. You're dealing with teams that if Steve Bisciotti needs to go buy person X, Y, and Z the highest end equipment that he can buy to get this done, he's going to do it.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. But
he sees the investment in it. He sees this as a long-term investment. And not only just that, the potential, that's one thing that a lot of businesses are seeing right now is the potential future with this, right?
Yeah.
Now we can have people, we were previously doing it before. They had, a NFL representative or, in MLB, they do it that way where they're there and they're the ones, helping turn in the decision. But at the same time, now you can do those things virtually, and you can have somebody everybody in the draft room, and not have to have somebody there, and you can do a lot of different things here.
Yeah, that's very true. But leave it to the Bengals, right? The Bengals have the #1 overall pick, and where do the issues start? At #1. The #1 pick supposedly had like all kinds of tech issues. It took them like 20 minutes to be able to get it sorted out. And then once they got that sorted through, they were fine the rest of the way. It sounded like they might have ran out of minutes on their AOL CD. They needed to upload some more minutes from their CD.
I mean, really, what do you expect from a Bengals reporter? They've had nothing to report for how many years now? At least the Browns didn't have the major technical issues, because then it would be a true shit show.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what is normally a shit show of a team and an organization are the Detroit Lions. But I was actually watching ESPN earlier today, and they had their GM on there. He said they've gone as far as having the head of their IT parked in his driveway in a Winnebago outside, just in case they have any tech issues. He's right there and waiting.
I mean,
that was pretty great.
I think that's a genius idea.
Absolutely.
It comes down to your GM anyway, so why not? I mean, that's the way to go. Having somebody that can be right there and you worked around. Honestly, that's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear a team or two do that afterwards, or if they're not already doing it.
Agreed. And we'll probably see that, across the board. It's just there's so many people involved in this draft. You've got your scouts, you've got your GM, you've got your coaches, you've got so many people. How many IT people can you have available at each one of those locations? It becomes kind of cost proficient. But listen, like I said, it's $1 billion business. They should be able to afford it if anybody can. And I'm sure they have IT support teams, not just an IT support guy. They've got a team that should be able to spread out and do something similar for each one of these organizations.
Yeah, you just hope, and I don't wish this on anybody, but I can see it coming. Somebody's going to get a major storm that's coming through their area, and it's going to knock it out, and they can't get their pick in time, and you're bound to have something like this. But this is why you have a tech guy that can help develop redundancies and things like that.
That's why I'm so excited for this thing, man. All the wild card things that could potentially go wrong and all could potentially happen in this.
It's not even the wild card trades at this point. It's whose internet's gonna go out.
Right. Who's got Verizon and who's got AT&T? Who's shit in the bed here? I can't wait to see it. I'm excited.
Who's got T-Mobile?
Yeah, right. Oh, man. But before we get too much into the draft, because we are, as you can see on the rundown, we're going to talk about the first round. We're going to talk about Friday and Saturday's picks. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about each one of the rounds. There was some news that came out today. So Lamar Jackson had his video press conference today. And they kind of, bombarded him with a bunch of the same questions that they've been asking all these guys. And Lamar actually, didn't really go in depth with a lot of his answers. He was really short in a lot of his answers. Which I was kind of surprised with. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it or not.
He handled himself well, though.
Yeah.
I think because there's so many question marks, you can't go too in depth. And you get some of these guys that start speculating and things like that. I think he did what a leader did. He's not speculating. He's
Right.
keeping his answers short, sweet, to the point, addressing the question. He didn't go around any questions that I really noticed, at least. He answered the question. He just kept it short and sweet and kept it in that vague format as a leader should. That everything else needs to stay inside.
Right. Well, the one thing that he did reveal that he wasn't hiding any
He did not
longer,
hide it at
as you-
all.
As you see up in the corner there, we're going to have a new Raven on the cover of Madden 2021.
I don't know
Lamar's going to don it.
I don't know who created that, but honestly, EA Sports should go hire them.
I was saying the same thing when I saw it pop up on Twitter. I'm like, well, if I was at EA, I'd be like, done and done. I don't even need to pay my guys to do anything. Like,
Right, I'll go
that's
pay
great.
that guy. But
Right,
you know what?
exactly. It
The
looks
problem
awesome.
is it's probably going to be more expensive to pay that guy than it will be to pay your own people to do it.
Right, exactly. Well, I wanted to get your talk because your take. We hadn't had a chance to talk about this yet because
No.
obviously this happened a couple of hours prior to us going live. What's your initial reaction to this? Obviously, a lot of fans were on both sides of the fence. Some fans are worried about the curse. Some people say, well, the curse is over because the Mahomes won a Super Bowl last year. What's your take on this?
Look, I'm honestly, I am seriously 100% torn. I don't know how to feel on this because Mahomes. I do feel Mahomes did break the curse, right? I feel like he had a good year. Obviously, he broke that curse to an extent. But under the same token, one out of how many being successful? It's what? I think it's been 18 years since somebody hasn't really done it. Maybe more than that, right?
It's been a while. It's been a long time, and it definitely, in my opinion, it's been a bad string of luck. And we've talked about this before because we kind of assumed that this was probably going to happen.
We knew
that
this was
Lamar
gonna
was going to
happen.
be, and we both said no, like stay away. I don't want to see it. And for just
Just
guess
because of the curse, it's superstition
reasons
exactly.
or whatever. But at the end of the day, there is no such thing as a curse. We don't live in a fantasy world. We cannot predict the future. Nothing affects anything.
I'm gonna
Just being on the cover of Madden doesn't affect anything. So forget it. Who cares?
To take words out of your mouth, don't you put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
Right. Who cares, man? Enjoy it, right? Ray did it back in 2005, so it's been 16 years since we've had a Raven on the cover, and we just had our first Raven win the offensive MVP award of the league. Like, yes, shine, man. Go out there and get your spotlight,
Yeah.
man. I'm all for it. Doesn't
Yeah.
bother me one bit.
And he's over. I think at this point, he's over the idea that everybody has of this. I think some people still think, oh, there's a sophomore slump coming. He's beyond that at this point. I said it last year. I became a true believer when I had seen 16 games out of Lamar.
Right.
That was my point where I was like, you know what? If you look and say, okay, yeah, he was the MVP for the last year. Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. But you know what people are overlooking when it comes to that is he was actually an MVP for the last 22 games.
Right.
So he really expanded upon that and showed that he can do this on a long-term basis. 22 games, if you haven't figured out a quarterback, I don't know that you're going to figure him out anytime soon.
Mabster hit it on the head. Lamar's all about breaking records. This will just be another. This will be another one that'll defy the odds. He's been defying the odds since day one, since he's gotten into Louisville and since he's been here at the NFL. He'll continue to do so.
There's people that are saying, look, this is a sign because Pat Mahomes broke the barrier with the curse, and this is a sign that we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Hey,
I'm for it.
I'm not a superstitious guy. I'm not a guy that wears the same underwear 2 days in a row. That's weird if you do. But hey, to each their own.
Hey, Fred, you wear them 2 days in a row, you just turn them inside out. All right? That's all you do. But no, I mean, our boy Engraven, he even said, he's like, does this mean we're going to win a Super Bowl? Look, I mean, I'm all for that. I think we have a lot of the tools. We have everything we need there. We need, there's some small pieces that we know we need that hopefully will be addressed through this draft. But I'm excited. I'm not necessarily worried about it. But there is some, superstition involved a little bit, but it's just because it's a numbers game, right? Look at what happens. We know that's why we call it a curse. That's why we think the curse is there, is because the numbers are against somebody. But I think where he's at in his career, the numbers are more in his favor than they are the curse.
Not worried about it in the slightest. But, another story that broke right before we went live, literally like an hour before we went live, has nothing to do with the Ravens, but I had to get your take on it. We have not talked about it yet. The Patriots and Buccaneers work out a trade. Buccaneers send a 4th-round pick to the Patriots. In return, Rob Gronkowski comes out of retirement, and a 7th-round pick goes back to Tampa Bay.
Hold on.
Initial thoughts.
I'm going to rephrase what you said. The only reason that this trade happened is because Rob Gronkowski said he wanted to come out of retirement and play with Tom again. That's why this trade happened. If he doesn't say that, this isn't happening. It doesn't matter.
Well, he clearly said it. Actually, what happened was 2 years ago, before Gronk retired, 2 years ago, right before the draft, very similar situation. The Detroit Lions were in trade discussions with the Patriots for Gronk. Gronk shot that down and said, nope, I will not play for another quarterback. I will not have another quarterback throw to me other than Tom Brady. I'm out. And that's when he ultimately, decided to move forward with his retirement after that. This just follows suit. Tom Brady goes down to the Buccaneers. I personally think this was in the works for a while. I think Tom knew that this was going to be his last run in New England last year, and he said, hey, how's that weather down there in Florida? Thinking about going down to Tampa Bay or Jacksonville, kind of making a home down there.
So our boy James might have an answer to this, so you're going to have to pay attention to the chats here. At WrestleMania, I know that Rob Gronkowski won a championship from WWE, and there were serious talks he was going to join WWE. So does he still have that title? And now does this play a loop into anything he was doing with them? Obviously not if he's signing with if he's joining back on and being traded. But at the same time, there's just so many different loops with this. I don't know what to take of the Buccaneers at this point. I really don't. Yeah. I mean, Gronk, look, he is a top tight end, no doubt. He's been out of the game for a little bit.
But is he anymore? Let's look at the facts, right? So when he left, yes, he was absolutely still a top flight tight end. But I don't know if you've paid attention, but Gronk looks like a shell of himself. In 1 year, literally, it looks like somebody hit the deflate button on him, and he's really, really slendered down. He's a lot leaner than he's ever been in his life. A lot of that's probably HGH, but whatever. He could probably get some of those injections going again and get himself pumped back up.
So what I hear, Fred, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now going to get we're going to have a buck deflate gate and a buck HGH. That's what I hear.
They just need to throw some Fix-A-Flat in him and then just pump him up full of air and he'll be fine.
I love it.
Throw some Fix-A-Flat in him.
I love it, man.
Know. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, listen, the guy is still a great player. He's still young enough to be very good. But he did have some injuries, obviously, that kind of halted him through the end of his career, especially the last couple of years in his career. But there's nobody that knows Gronkowski any better than Tom Brady. And if anybody's going to make Gronk successful, they complete each other. You complete me. Tom completes Gronk. Gronk completes Tom. And listen, Tom's got other weapons down there. He's got 2 legit wide receivers in Chris Godwin, and he's got Mike Evans down there. You throw Rob Gronkowski in there, who are you going to double? You can't put the double over the top like you would have against New England.
So let me ask you this. Do we see Wes Welker ask for a trade and go
down to
Tampa Bay? I mean,
Wes Welker is stuck in like a MRI machine for the rest of his life as he gets CAT scans done and MRIs done
on a daily basis.
Concussions. Yeah, that guy, he's a walking concussion.
Look, overall, when you look at it, for the Patriots, there's still so many question marks around what is Gronk going to be coming back, right? So the Patriots, I still have not heard, I still have not seen, and maybe you have because you were on Twitter right before the show as I was kind of prepping some of the stuff on the technical side, but did they announce what the Patriots are getting in return yet?
Yeah, that's what I had on there. So the Patriots are getting a 4th-round pick.
Okay.
Patriots get a 4th-round pick. So in my eyes, this was a no-brainer move for the Patriots. Rob Gronkowski was still going to get paid $10 million this year from the Patriots. He had 1 year left on his deal for $10 million.
All guaranteed money, yeah.
All guaranteed, right? You get rid of that, and you get a 4th-round pick for a player that was retired. This might be right up there with that like Vedvik type deal that Eric DaCosta pulled off as like, holy cow, like to be able to get a 4th-round pick for a retired player. That's a pretty damn good deal.
It is. But the difference between that is Vedvik was still to an extent unproven, right?
Yeah.
Gronk is proven, and he's proven with the guy that you're putting him with. right?
Yeah.
So there is I get you, but to me to sit there and compare it to that and say this is a steal,
I think it's a steal. I'm just saying it's exactly what we got for Vic. I'm just saying it's a damn good deal.
Yeah, but let's
the
not,
Patriots.
With them getting Gronkowski, and then I see your note there with the 7th round pick for Tampa Bay. The 4th rounder, it's still a question mark. Yes, can a 4th rounder wind up really working out? Yeah, but can a 4th rounder wind up falling off? Hell yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's until
Rob
all
you were going to do was sit on it. He made it clear that he wasn't going to play for another quarterback other than Tom Brady. So Tom Brady's gone.
You got somebody to take to take the contract and
you're
get a
either
going to
pay $10 million and get nothing, or you get rid of that $10 million and you turn it into a 4th round pick. I don't know. It's pretty impressive in my opinion. But what's got to stop, and it's got to stop now. So please don't do this for the next couple of months. I can't take it. All these fans already on Twitter, not Ravens fans, but just NFL fans in general, pointing at the Tampa Bay. Could they make a Super Bowl run? This is the same shit we saw last year with the Browns when the Browns started making all these moves and bringing in Odell Beckham. Everybody looked at them on paper and said, oh, these are going to be the next Super Bowl champs. I'm sure there will be a Sports Illustrated cover that'll have Tom Brady and all these guys and Gronkowski and Evans and Godwin on the cover, Super Bowl bound, something stupid like that. No. Their team is awful outside of that group of players.
You're killing me with these comparisons today because you're comparing guys with just a name to guys with names and rings. It just doesn't work, Fred. It doesn't work that way. Look, I think there is some argument to be had that Tampa Bay is serious, right? They're going and getting a guy. Now, granted, both the guys they got are, to some people's eyes, past their prime, right? But you know that as soon as Tom went down and did the Bucks deal, you know he was on the phone to Gronk. That was not a Gronk going.
Like I said, this deal was in the works for a while. I think this deal was being talked about last year during the season. I think Tom Brady knew his days in New England were done.
You think he was going to Tampa though? Like you think you knew he was going to Tampa? I don't think
I do. I think that there was a lot of writing on the wall already. Jameis Winston was out of Tampa Bay long before the terrible year that he had last year.
Despite all the question marks in Oakland, Carolina, like I disagree with you there.
He was dead set. I didn't say he was dead set on going to Tampa Bay. I do think Tampa Bay was an option, but I think him and Rob Gronkowski were.
You think it was okay? You think it was a hush deal? You think it was a hush deal between the two of them?
Yes, wherever I go, you're coming with me. And it just worked out that he's going to Florida, which I think was where Rob Gronkowski
lives
is
down
right
there
now.
Yeah, he lives down there. I think he lives down near Miami.
Right. And what is Tom Brady living in down there? He's living in Derek Jeter's mansion. You think Gronk doesn't want in on that to come down there for a party in Derek Jeter's mansion?
Exactly.
Get out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I thought you were saying that the Patriots and Bucks were talking about. I was like, whoa, because like there were too many X factors there at that point. But no, I get your point. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That the two of them were talking, and it was, hey. I think especially once the writing became on the wall, I think that was, where it was, I'm going to move on. So for me, if I go somewhere else, you won't come with me. And that I agree with you. I think that could have been exactly where it was.
100% agree. 100%. All right, Scott, it's time for the Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. What did Jerry and the boys hook you up with today?
So today, I'm going to be drinking this today, and I'm going to be drinking this on Thursday for our live draft with the Big Play guys. Which
cannot believe we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm mentioning it. That's why I'm mentioning it. I got it, Fred. I got it. Don't worry about it. But Fred's gonna swing by and get him one of these because these are good. So this is from Flying Dog, and this is their new what they're calling deck beer. They're saying that this beer is in a class of its own. They call it Flying Dog Beer Hop or Pool Hopping Deck Beer, and they say, brewed in the deep end, this beer is built for breaking into your neighbor's pool for some summertime day drinking or for kicking it in on the back deck with nothing to do. Hazy, fruity, and light on both bitterness and ABV. Pool hopping embodies everything you love about summer, so order some new swim trunks, practice your cannonballs, and we'll meet you on the diving board.
Quick story. That beer is absolutely made for me. I used to pool hop when I was a kid with all the little hoodlums in my neighborhood because we had houses like we lived in a single family development, but all the houses were basically like right next door to each other, and all of them were separated by the same Home Depot privacy fence, cheap
The little
privacy
dog-eared.
fence. Yeah, the little dog ears on them, exactly. And we would literally just hop the privacy fence, jump in the pool, swim from one side to the other, hop out, and go to the next one. And we did it all summer long. People hated us.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. But no, so this beer, my wife actually, she still has to work. She's an essential employee, so she picked it up from Liquor Stop for me this week, and she tried this, and she tasted it. And the original, I smelled it, and I was like, "You're not going to like this." She doesn't like IPAs, and hazy. Usually hear hazy with IPAs,
Right.
and you get the initial hop taste, and then after that, it's this like it is truly a fruity citrus aftertaste. It is not a hop aftertaste. It is a fruit citrus aftertaste. She downed one of these beers last night.
So it's almost like a hybrid IPA and maybe like a Blue Moon type thing.
Yeah,
finish?
kind of, yeah, kind of like a wheat beer or something like that. That's the kind of the finish that it has to it. So smooth beer. By the way, they're still doing curbside pickup over there. So if you are in the need for anything, you need some quarantine stuff for yourself, whatever it may be, go check them out at Liquor Stop. Let them know that Birdland BS sent you. Get you 10% off.
All right, Scott. So we're here. We're officially 48 hours now away. We can say that. It's 8:02. We are officially 48 hours away.
This is perfect timing, by the way.
It is perfect timing. Was not meant to be that way, but I like it.
I'll take it.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into this first round. Obviously, the Ravens have the number 28 overall pick in this year's draft. Will the Ravens stay at 28? Will they move up? Will they move down? What's going to happen with this 28 pick? So there's a lot of things going on, and there will be a lot more things that we'll speculate and go on. But one of the things that popped up 2 days ago that I thought was kind of intriguing is the 49ers are said to be shopping both of their first round picks. They have 2 picks in the first round, number 13 and number 31 overall. So they're said to be shopping both of those because they don't have any picks from round 2 through 4. They have nothing in the middle. They have a few from in the 5th, 6th, and 7th, but nothing in the middle of the draft, which if you talk to any of the experts, that's where they say the meat and potatoes of this draft is. You can find some really, really good talent between rounds 2 and 4, depending upon what you're looking for.
Low cost, high value guys.
Exactly. So at pick 13, if the Ravens were to make a trade there, that puts them in the realm of potentially one of those top tier wide receivers that we've been talking about. You know, the Henry Ruggs of the world, the Jerry Judys of the world, and the CeeDee Lambs of the world, just kind of depending upon how the draft falls, how many teams take tackles, how many teams take quarterbacks in the first couple of picks. That truthfully, in the first 10 picks, we could see nothing but quarterbacks, you know, offensive tackles, maybe a sprinkle in there, and Isaiah Simmons and Brown, the kid out of Auburn. But we could see a lot of chips fall later than expected, and that could put us in the realm of a potential top tier wide receiver.
You could definitely make that argument. You know, what they'd be wanting for that number 13 pick would probably be, you know, I'm assuming at least a third and maybe a sixth, or maybe maybe even a seventh, a third and a seventh. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think they're actually shopping for here?
So if you're going to move up from 28 to 13, you're going to have to give up some serious draft capital. You're going to have to give up more than likely a second and a third on top of your 28th pick overall to make that deal happen.
You think
pretty rich?
You'd have to give up 3 picks to get that far up.
Well, you're swapping one. You're swapping ones. So essentially, and you're downgrading them for 15 picks from 13 to 28. So you got to make that up to them and entice them. Right. It's going to take a second and a third to be able to do that.
All right, fair enough.
But
fair enough. I see where you're
that doesn't put the Ravens out of the game, because right now the Ravens have a total of 9 picks, and like I said earlier, they've got 5 in the first 3 rounds.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So they've got 2 in the second and 2 in the third. If they do trade one of the second and one in the third, that still doesn't take them out of play for a piece in the second and third.
No, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. You're still having what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You still have 7 draft picks at that point. So
Right.
it's you still have value. You still have draft capital. You could make that work. I see where you're going with that, and I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking, long term, getting guys in the late round, especially because they, look, it's the 49ers. I don't know what they would be necessarily shopping for at that point in some of the laters.
They got rid of Emmanuel Sanders last year, so they absolutely have a need for a wide receiver. They're pretty set defensively, but they could use some help at corner, but they could use some help at offensive line. So,
but that kind of goes to your point, though. If they're needing wide receiver, there are some guys that are going in the 11 to 18 range, or projecting to go in that range, that are top tier guys like a Henry Ruggs that you would be able to pick up and be able to make an immediate impact.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Is it worth making that trade for the Ravens? Do the Ravens see the value in making that type of deal to go up to number 13 and get a top flight wide receiver? We've heard Eric DeCosta countless amounts of times already say it's about putting playmakers, more and more playmakers around Lamar, making this offense indefensible. And the way you do that is by putting as many playmakers around Lamar as you possibly can. And we all know our shortcomings at wide receiver. We all expect to see a big jump in Hollywood from year 1 to year 2, just based on health alone, yet alone the work that he's been putting in. I don't know if you've been paying attention to his social media over the last few weeks, but the amount of work that this guy is putting in and the kind of shape that he's keeping himself in, considering the situation right now, is super, super impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive the way that he's been handling himself. Overall, I think it makes sense. I get your point. I don't know that we move up. If we move up, I don't know that it's that far. I don't know that if you're saying that that's the type of draft capital that you think we've got to give up to get that, I don't know that it's that far. I don't think we can afford that, because we have some depth, but you want to be able to build some more depth, right? And so I don't know that that's the way to go. I think I see them more so staying in that 25, 28 range, somewhere in there. If they're trading, I don't think it's going to be that far.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, listen, 9 picks is a lot. The Ravens don't technically need 9 players. Not to mention, because this draft is so heavy and so deep, there's going to be a lot of guys that go undrafted, and the Ravens are kings with undrafted free agents. So they're going to have some guys later on that they're going to be able to bring in for tryouts to see if they can make a roster spot. They don't necessarily need to take 9 picks in this draft. So the Ravens could very well get aggressive and move up. Does that mean that they're going to move up to number 13 for a wide receiver? No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. But you've got to find the right trade partner. And obviously the 49ers have made it public that they're willing to discuss it. They're willing to make that move because they want more draft capital in the middle round. Right. So the 49ers make sense. But outside of wide receiver, we also know that edge rusher is obviously a premium and a position of need, and a guy that I've been real high on, a guy that I would love to see somehow fall in the Ravens' lap, LSU Clavon Chason. That's a guy that he could come in immediately, be a game wrecker, and if, God forbid, next year you do lose Matt Judon, you have his replacement right then and there.
And because of some of the other things that are going on with these projections, he's one of those guys that's kind of, I'm not going to say he's starting to be projected all over the place, but he's being projected. I've seen him in 11 through 15. I've seen him 15 through 18. Right. I've even seen in a few of them where he's falling 21 to 25. Right.
The point is, you're gonna have to move up regardless.
To get a guy like him, you have to move up. There's no question about it. Right. So we talked about trading up. One thing that they've done historically is trading back. Right. You really can't go much further than 28 and keep a first round guy to have some value without picking up a bunch of guys. But if that initial move is to trade back, get more draft capital, to then turn around and trade up, I could see that happening. I could see us releasing that 28th pick to somebody who may want it. It's probably going to be somebody that's maybe in the 18 category, right? So we trade back to get more draft capital, to then turn around and trade up, maybe get a second and a third rounder, or maybe a second and a fourth rounder, and then you trade up and you get a guy that maybe you can get at 18, maybe you get it at 19.
Right. So you're kind of on the same lines that I'm thinking, right? So again, they've already got 9 draft picks, so they're not going to trade. They're not going to trade for more picks and keep those picks. They're not going to draft 11 players.
Right.
I can't see the Ravens doing that. But what I can see is exactly to your point. I could see them if the board falls in a certain way and they don't value a guy at 28 and they feel like they could get the guy that they want later in the second round, maybe high up in the second round, right? If they can find the right trade partner, and hear me out on this, if they trade back from 28 into the second round and they pick up another second and they pick up a third, that puts the Raven in a position with 3 second-round picks and 3 third-round picks now, right? Then they find a trade partner to take those 3 third-round picks and turning it into an additional second-round pick. Now you don't have any picks in the third round, but you've got 4 picks.
Hold on,
Those original 2 second and third round picks you had. Now you have 4 picks in the second round.
But then you're trading up 4 picks in the second round for nothing in the third and nothing in the first.
That's what I'm saying. But you've now got 4 picks in the beginning of the meat and potatoes of this draft, right? If you feel like, again, everything is tiered for most scouts, right? They've got a boatload of tiers for all the different positions, right? And you feel like the areas that you need at 28, the board shakes in a way you were completely unexpected, and the guys that you were going after are all gone. You don't want to reach for a guy at 28, right?
No.
If you can find that extra value, move back a couple of slots, gain those extra picks, and then turn those extra picks into more second rounders.
Yeah, I mean,
now you got 4 picks in the second round. That's huge.
But let's be real. A trade like that's not going to happen until you hit about 23, 24. When you hit 23, 24, that's where you're considering a trade like that. If that trade's not going to happen when we're on the 10th round pick. It's just not. It's not going to happen.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying when the Ravens get down to 28, close to 28,
right?
They'll probably know at 25, 26 if their guy's going to be there, right? If they've got, let's just say they've got 5 guys in mind that they're willing to spend a 28th round pick on, and they get the pick number 25 and 26, and those 5 guys are gone, they may start calling down to 30, 31, 32, and seeing if anybody wants to move up to 28, or calling into the beginning of the second round,
right,
and seeing if any of those guys want to come up, kind of like what the Ravens did last year. They traded up into the very end of the first round and took Lamar Jackson, right? Or 2 years ago. They might find a team that's desperate for a quarterback, maybe somebody that wants to get in there and get Jordan Love. Who knows? Somebody that wants to move up to 28 to get their guy.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying there. I guess my thought process is, you know, you talked about the meat and potatoes, right? The meat and potatoes is guys that have talent. But there's a difference to me between guys that have talent that are in those rounds, guys that are playmakers in the first round. What is the one thing we've heard Eric DeCosta say? You mentioned it. He wants to put playmakers around him. That's why
there's going to be a lot of playmakers in the second round, is what I'm saying is, for me, and this is just me, the top tier wide receivers are the first 3 guys, and we've talked about them, right? At ends, the first 3 guys. There's a big group of second tier guys. I mean, we've gone down the list before. I mean, there's
provides
a ton
you
of them
depth.
there.
Yeah, I get that.
Justin
there's
Jefferson, T. Wiggins, Denzel Mims, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, there's a whole list of these guys that'll probably be available at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second round. Again, if you're just trying to gain that draft capital and move up some, it might make sense, because I just don't think there's one guy in that second tier that stands out more than the other. I think I'd be happy with a few pieces there that might make sense for them.
All right. So let's get to this, right? I want you to give me 2 predictions. I want you to give me what is your realistic prediction, and then I'll give my realistic prediction. And then we're going to go with our bold prediction for the Ravens for this draft. What would you want to see? Who do you want to see? What trade? What scenario? What would you love to see happen? So let's start with your realistic. What is your realistic pick at number 28, or whatever you think may happen, even if you think it's a trade up or trade back?
So I think the Ravens are going to look at a few different things. Again, it's going to depend upon how the draft is going to fall. Obviously, the inside linebackers out there that everybody's talking about, Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray. I'm not as high on Patrick or on Kenneth Murray as some. I really do like Patrick Queen. I think Patrick Queen would be a great pick at 28. But I think Patrick Queen will be gone before the Ravens pick at 28 if they stay there. I do think Kenneth Murray will be gone as well. Those top three for me, again, this is just my take. Those top three wide receivers, if they're not there and we're staying at 28, which they won't be there at 28, they're not going to take a wide receiver. The edge guys and the offensive line guys is what I'm looking at and going to monitor very closely, right? I assume around the 28th pick, we're going to have the kid Gross Matos there out of Penn State, Epinesa out of Iowa, Bond out of Wisconsin, Terrell Lewis, which I know a lot of people are high on him and him up the draft board, even though he's got injury concerns. And I heard there are even more red flags with his injuries that popped up. So that might kill that one altogether. Those are some guys that I'm going to look at. But for me, and we've been saying this now for weeks, the importance of offensive line with this offense, right? We lost Marshall Yanda. We lost the depth with Hurst. We don't know what the situation is with Matt Skura as far as injury goes. We know he'll be in the fold, but we definitely have a need for offensive line. So if it's me, my realistic pick is going to be Cesar Ruiz, the center out of Michigan.
You're going offensive line. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounding like me
I think
now.
that makes the most sense for this team because, again, the interior offensive linemen, the drop-off from the first round to those middle rounds where we talked about the meat and potatoes is pretty severe, not as much with the wide receivers. I think you could pick up better value wide receivers second, third, fourth rounds.
So because of that exact reason, I actually expect the Ravens to trade up 3 spots with a team that is going to need some producers at wide receiver. I see them trading up and trading with Minnesota and being able to grab A.J. Epinesa. Because
so let me ask you this before you get too in depth with that. If you know Minnesota's need is wide receiver, why are you trading with them for an edge guy? If you know they're going to take a wide receiver, why are you trading with them to take an edge guy? Because that edge guy is not going to be taken by them.
Because I think the edge guy could go to a Seattle.
Okay,
right.
And that's
they're losing.
possible.
They're losing Clowney. Right. We need to get ahead of Seattle.
Okay.
So if we can get ahead of Seattle and grab AJ Epinesa and grab the edge, we're completely flopping roles here. Because a few weeks ago you were saying edge and I was saying offensive line. So I just looking at it, looking at the situation, how things seem to be, predictively falling. Look, with what happened in Seattle, I think Jadeveon Clowney being gone, they're going to need a guy, and I think Epinesa, Gross Matos is going to be gone by that pick. I think Epinesa becomes the guy that they start looking at, and what better way to do that than to handle it? You can jump in front of them because you're not going to necessarily jump in front of Miami in that situation. You're gonna want to jump in front of both of them, and so that's where I think going to Minnesota. I think the guy, one of the things that we see predicting kind of falling back and forth here is where guys like T. Higgins and Denzel Mims are going to fall. Are they going to be late first rounders or early second rounders? Why not say, okay, look, let us pick up. It looks like the draft board has fallen where T or Denzel, one of the two is going to be there for you, and we want to trade up above Seattle to be able to get this edge rusher. Look, I think it makes sense.
I'm 100% on board with that. Like I told you, those are two guys that I would absolutely be 100% okay with the Ravens taking. It's just for me, if both guys are there, talking about Ruiz and Epinesa, I lean more towards the offensive line help because I do think that with the additions that we made through free agency, I don't think the edge rusher to me is quite as important as the offensive line replacement is because this team is going to be predicated around how successful this offense is. All right, so you've put out your realistic prediction. I've put out my realistic prediction. You said you were going to make a bold prediction. Before I get into my bold one, what's your prediction?
All right, so my bold prediction is probably going to have a few people scratching their heads, but if you're scratching your head, maybe you haven't been paying attention to the news and understanding what this usually means for guys in the draft. My bold prediction, Steve's going to love this. Mekhi Becton out of Louisville.
The tackle?
The tackle falls to the Ravens, and they take him.
All the way down to 28?
They take him down to 28. He was predicted in top 10, anywhere between like 8 and like 12 is where they were saying he was going.
He's one of the top 3 tackles in this draft.
But he failed a drug test at the combine. What have we seen when guys fail drug tests and or have issues? We've seen them start to fall. And honestly, with offensive and defensive linemen, we've seen that affect them more than it would a guy like a quarterback or a wide receiver.
I don't know.
I haven't seen full predictions doing this yet, but I just see him falling.
Tunzel had a freaking gas mask full of weed in a picture posted that he obviously would have failed a drug test for, and he fell a little bit. He didn't fall all the way to the end of the first round. He fell a couple of picks where the Ravens took Roddy Stanley.
But it's all going to shake out to the team that maybe wanted him in that area. You want bold? I always give bold.
That's bold. I like it. I mean,
sorry. So you're going to say
it's got a shot in hell of happening.
What are you saying is the bold statement here?
Well, I'm not going to go quite as bold apparently, but I do think everything that we've been talking about with Eric DeCosta making the statement that he wants to put more weapons around Lamar and make this offense more undefensible, all of that stuff. I do think the Ravens pull off that trade. I think they've got too much draft capital. They're in a position that they haven't been in years past where they can actually pull off a move to move up to 13, give the 49ers that depth that they're looking for in the middle rounds in the second and the third round, right? They give up their 28th pick, they give up the 55th pick, and they give up the 92nd pick. That's my prediction. They move up to 13, and they take Jerry Jeudy. And I think the only reason that they're going to get Jerry Jeudy at 13 is because all of a sudden, just like there is every year with the draft, there have been some red flags about his injuries, some knee issues that he had in college that just came to the surface recently. I could see Henry Ruggs potentially going to the Jets, and I could see, CeeDee Lamb going before Jerry Jeudy.
Just to throw it out there, that would be my only thing with that, though, right? Is with Jeudy and the injury questions now, the Ravens are one of the most critical teams when it comes to injuries. So you think even with us being that way, we would still pursue that?
I do. And everything adds up, right? Like I said, they've got the draft capital.
Everything adds up for me except for the injury piece because of our history with how we treat guys. Look at the guy in the offseason. We just said, you know what? We don't want to do the deal with you, but we want to give you less money because of the fact that we can't go back on your injury history and look at and do a new way. A new physical that we have to do it. So that's why I'm really honestly surprised you went Jerry Jeudy there.
I think Brian brings up a good point. Risk reward, right? I mean, you got to weigh the risk reward there. I think that this guy has the chance to be a game-changing type of wide receiver. He's the best route runner in the draft. We haven't had a legit route runner like him since really Bolden, right? I mean, we haven't had that type of receiver in a long time, but this guy is the complete package at wide receiver. He would really, really make this team dynamic and take it to another level.
He would elevate it for sure. I personally don't see the Ravens trading up when there's injury questions. I just don't. So we'll see what happens. I think we both have pretty decent realistic predictions. I think we both have, some pretty damn bold predictions. We'll see how close we get on both of those. So in due time, 48 hours, we'll find out.
All right, man. So now it's time to move on to Friday and Saturday, which before we get into that, we kind of touched on it, but we didn't make the announcement official yet. We'll talk about this again after the show, just so everybody out there knows. If you're not going to be watching the ESPN broadcast, if you're not going to be watching the NFL broadcast, and you just want some local love, we are pairing with all the guys from Big Play. We're going to do our third annual, our second one with Big Play draft show covering the first round. It's just going to be first round on Friday, but we're going to start probably at 7:30 leading up to the draft and cover all 32 picks with the guys from Big Play. I think it's going to be a total of 6 of us. It was a lot of fun last year. We're going to have the chat stream going in the live stream so that all your comments are up there. We're going to try to work as many of them in as we can. It should be a lot of fun. So if you want to put us up on multiple screens, build your own draft war room, kind of like all these GMs are. Have Birdland BS up on one screen, ABC on another, ESPN on another, whatever you want.
And all that matters is just turn everybody else down and turn us up. That's all you got to do, right? Because that's all you got to listen to. But no, yeah, I mean, the other thing to expound upon too, on Friday, we're going to be on with SCG Sports on his page, doing a full, Ravens content piece there with a bunch of other YouTubers as well. And then, Saturday we're working Saturday and Sunday or Saturday. I'm sorry, not Sunday. I'm so used to saying Sunday. Saturday we're going to work some things out. We might do something for us. We'll figure it out and let you guys know. But we're excited. We're excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. The cool thing is we're actually hosting that part of it. It's all going through our computers and our stuff.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun.
For sure. And then obviously for the guys that, if you've never watched the Big Play show, they're Cleveland fans. So I'm sure there will be some friendly bickering and bantering back there and back and forth, uncensored, of course, Birdland BS style.
The only sad part is that their resident Steelers fan, Jay, will not be on, unfortunately.
Yeah, he backed out. The Steelers don't have a first-round pick, so he has nothing in the fold to look forward. For. Yeah, everybody would just be riled him and giving him a bunch of crap about, Mason Rudolph getting beat over the head with a helmet. I think he just wanted to take a back seat and sit this one out.
Yeah,
it should be a lot of fun.
All right, man.
I was
going to say, let's get into Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, the meat and potatoes of this draft. This is where the Ravens can do a lot of damage and a lot of work, right? They've got 4 picks on Friday in rounds 2 and 3. Saturday, they've got the remaining 3 picks that they have in the 4th through the 7th. This is where the Ravens will probably do a lot of dancing around. You'll probably see some, like I said, maybe some pieces leave for a first-round pick if they move up. But let's just say, hypothetically, they stay where they're at right now. They've got the 55th, the 60th, the 92nd, and the 106th pick overall just in rounds 2 and 3. Is this where we see the Ravens maybe potentially start targeting some of those wide receiver prospects if they don't make a trade to go up for Jerry Jeudy?
If you don't make a trade to go up for Jerry Jeudy, there is, Shannon, to your point, there are some guys that can provide you some talent and some depth. I don't necessarily, my only argument with some of these guys in some of these later rounds is some of these guys are not, you can't necessarily translate they're going to be playmakers at the NFL level. They have talent. They have talent, but can it translate? I don't necessarily see, especially in the later half. I don't know that it can happen. Right as you start getting later in the round, we all know as you start getting later, you start getting these small school guys. You get in these small school guys that can't always handle the NFL and the speed at the NFL. Time's going to tell. That's the only thing that we can do is whoever we pick up, can they translate it? There's talent, and I like that. I just don't know that it's playmaker ability at the NFL level. You're playing against top-tier cornerbacks.
B-word hit the nail on the head there. Said the same thing about Mark Andrews. That's why Mark Andrews fell to the 3rd round, and now he's a top 3 tight end in the league, right?
Fair enough.
There's a lot of really, really talent at the wide receiver position in this draft across the board. I'm telling you, you can find diamonds in the rough in the 4th round, as deep as the 4th round in this draft. But there's going to be some serious talent in the beginning of the 2nd round. It's just going to depend on how teams react to when the floodgates open at wide receiver, because Garnett and I were talking about this the other day. Once one goes off the board,
it's going to be boom, 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 boom.
They're all going to start falling. There could potentially be 5 or 6 wide receivers taken in the 1st round alone. We know the top 3 are gone. More than likely, Justin Jefferson is gone. More than likely, T. Higgins is gone. Some of those fringe guys that are there at the end of the 1st round going into the 2nd, which are guys that we want to keep an eye on. Denzel Mims, a guy that obviously Garnett's very high on at Baylor. Brandon Ayuk, he brings that versatility. He could be impactful not only at the wide receiver position, but in the return game. You've got Michael Pittman, which is my guy. Got him up there on the picture at the top there.
You like Pittman, I know that.
Pittman is my dude, man. He is the exact X type of receiver that we need in this offense. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. He's got good body control. He can go up and high point a ball. He's the complete package. This is why I'm hesitant on trading up in the draft, because you can get a guy like Pittman potentially in the 2nd round, but it's a risk.
Right.
It's a risk.
I was going to say the only thing that I would say to that, though, is there were a lot of the same things that you mentioned as far as the abilities of him were some of the same things that you thought you were going to get from Boykin last year.
Yeah, but Pittman and Boykin, you can't compare them. If I can tell you now, if Pittman was in last year's draft, Pittman 100% would have been a number 1 wide receiver, a first round wide receiver. He wouldn't have fallen to the 3rd round like a Miles Boykin did. Miles Boykin, I'm not ready to turn in the card on Miles Boykin and give up on him at all.
But I'm saying the immediate impact.
I honestly think Miles Boykin's future with this team will be more inside as a slot. You want to look at his height and you think that he should just be an outside guy, but he's got the type of speed to be able to make moves in the slot. You need to get that guy on the outside who can really body up and go up after a ball and be aggressive against a corner, which that was one of his knocks coming out of college, talking about Boykin, was even though he had the size, he wasn't a very physical wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is you're then, because he's not that physical, right? You're saying that you're putting him in the slot, but why do we have
potentially?
But why do you have right now Willie Snead playing a lot of the slot? Because he can get physical. He has the ability, even though he's got small size, he can get physical with guys, right?
Yeah.
So I see your point. I guess my one thing, and there's some guys at the front end, like a Pittman or a Mims, that could go in the beginning, early of the 2nd round. Yeah, they have the impact. When you get down to guys like, I know you like him, but you don't love him. A guy like KJ Hamler out of Penn State, you like him, but you don't love him, right? And
there's a lot of similarities with him and Steve Smith as far as his athleticism, his size, but he's got issues with hands, and that's the last thing that I want to take. I do not want to gamble on a player that has question marks around his hands.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I think that has a lot of validity to it. We do not like doing that here in Baltimore, because when we do, it fails completely. We fall flat on our face with those guys.
Right.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. I just think what you're saying is that there's a lot of guys with these, high talent in both those rounds. If you're going to do it, you have to do it early.
Right.
You've got to do it. You've got to do it but honestly, I don't know that they're going to be there at 55.
No, and they very well might not. Like I said, Pittman may go end of the 1st round, higher in the 2nd round. Like I said, our first pick isn't until 55 currently. So that puts us kind of far down in the 2nd before we make a pick. So very well Pittman could be gone, but there are other guys out there. Chenault out of Colorado.
Right.
He's got a similar athletic profile to Cordarrelle Patterson.
I noticed you stayed away from his first name, by the way.
Yeah, I wasn't going to try it.
Laviska.
Chenault, yeah, something like that. There's a lot of similarities to Patterson. I like his game, but he's also had some injury history question marks. A couple of guys that might fall later in the 2nd. Brian Edwards out of South Carolina, another bigger body wide receiver, another physical wide receiver, a true X wide receiver. I like him.
There's one other guy that Go ahead.
What's that?
I was gonna say that the other guy that I like for selfish purposes, Van Jefferson.
Yeah, that's where I was going next.
Out of Florida.
Van Jefferson, I've been high on him ever since the Senior Bowl. I didn't get a chance to really watch. I don't watch Florida play too often, so I didn't get a chance. And they didn't really utilize him.
No.
But I did watch him at the Senior Bowl, and in my opinion, he's one of the top route runners in this draft.
I was saying
right up there with Jerry Jeudy in that sense.
That's part of the thing was that he's a clean route runner. He just the biggest knock on him was developing some separation, right? So he can run clean routes, but the separation's not always there on those clean routes. He becomes predictable with the movements because he can run the clean route. So that's why I think he didn't get utilized enough in Florida. But at the same time, you know, to your point, I'll give you this one on him, and this is, again, it's a little bit of bias speaking, but if you utilize him compared, across from a Hollywood and next to a Boykin and next to a Snead, if you're going for a wide, who are you going to cover? You're going to cover probably Snead and Boykin, or Snead and Hollywood first, then Boykin. Then you're going to cover him, and he's going to start. Those clean routes are going to start to develop the separation. Then the confidence comes out. Now he's going to be able to start to really run those clean routes, get the separation. Now you don't know who to cover because now you got four guys you got to cover. So to your point, I think it makes sense. I like that. You talked me into it.
One of the question marks that I'm not 100% sold on, and it's gotten really strong legs over the last couple of days on social media, is the potential for the Ravens taking a running back in the second round.
I've
Now,
heard this.
obviously, we know this team is built around the run game, and we've got a really, really good running back core right now. We just broke the NFL record for rushing yards in an NFL season, right? Mark Ingram, though, he is getting up there in age. Gus Edwards, I really like Gus Edwards. Some people will say he's limited, but he's good in the role that he's in, but he couldn't be an every down featured back. I don't know. I think he could be in this offense, but I think some people are starting to clamor for a couple of guys in particular. And one of those guys that a lot of people are high on, Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. There's a lot of reason that people are high on this kid. And if you watch the tape on him, he is a Ray Rice clone. I mean, size, the way he moves,
the power with the legs.
movements. He's strong for his stature. He's got great acceleration, great quickness, very good hands out of the backfield. He gives this team another dimension from the running back position. I still think we haven't tapped the surface on Justice Hill. You know, I was very high on Justice Hill in the draft last year. I'm not turning in the card on Justice Hill by any means, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we all know how Ray Rice worked out here in Baltimore. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I don't mind the thought. It provides you a different ability, but with the way that this game is designed and with the way that this offense is designed, I think this offense is designed more for a tandem, or a platoon style back, just like we saw last year. I think it worked well. We got away from it when it came to the playoffs, right? I think you continue with that. You continue down that path. Maybe you take somebody in the later rounds. I hate him because he's from Florida State, but Cam Akers, right? A guy that could provide that same ability to platoon as a late round pick, allow him to sit there and imagine being able to develop and pick the brain of Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
I mean, just that thought process alone, plus the ability of what he was able to do with catching out of the backfield at Florida State. I think there's a lot to look at in a guy like him. Clyde Edwards, he's got a lot of high potential. I just don't think he's the right fit for this offense right now.
Oh, he's 100% the right fit for the offense. I think he fits into the offense. It's just, I don't know if it's the smartest pick right now. It's not a dire need. It's not a necessity right now. Would he be riches, adding to the riches? Absolutely. Like he's a great talent, but it's not a need. We've got other needs that we need. If we're taking, like you and I said, if we're taking that offensive line guy there in the first round, we still have holes at wide receiver. We still have holes at edge. We still have holes at defensive tackle. Like there's other positions that we could address that we don't need to address the running back position necessarily this year. Running backs, unfortunately for them, are a dime a dozen in the NFL, right? That's why you don't see a ton of running backs getting picked early in the drafts anymore. You can find good running backs usually in the mid rounds drafts that I don't think it's necessarily a need right now at all. But I can't argue the fact that he would be electric in this offense.
I get you. All right. So before we kind of move on here, I do have one other question that I have to ask you, because some people are saying, doesn't happen. Don't waste the draft pick. Don't do it. And to those people, I say, shut the hell up. Honestly, my opinion. I'll let you chime in here. I think you agree. Where and when do the Ravens take a cornerback in this draft?
They'll take a corner in this draft, but it won't be until the later rounds. I don't think they take a corner until the 5th or 7th round pick. They don't have anything in the 6th. It would be the 5th or 7th round.
I was honestly thinking a 7th round guy just to provide you depth that can get behind some of the top cornerbacks in the league, right? To be able to listen and talk to, again, I keep talking about tutelage, right? But that's a big thing with development, especially with later round guys. To be able to sit behind guys like Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, and Jimmy Smith, are you kidding me? That guy's going to get a ton of knowledge, and in probably 2 years is going to be ready to be a starter.
Yeah, now I could see the Ravens potentially taking a safety earlier in this draft. I could see a safety falling off the board in the 3rd or 4th round for the Ravens, potentially just to add some depth, like I said, behind Earl Thomas and behind, oh my God,
Chuck Clark.
Chuck Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've got Deshaun Elliott, he's coming back from an injury. They got Anthony Levine back there, but he's more of that Swiss Army knife. He's not a true safety. So they could potentially, if the right best player available, right?
Right.
Jeremy Chin, if somebody like that fell in their laps, Delpit fell in their laps, maybe they make a reach there for a safety. But as far as corner goes, I see that 5th or later.
All right.
So
Fair.
yeah, real quick shout out social media. See you, Rob Johnson chiming in. Steve, see you. Sonny, as always, good to see you. And we will be talking to you on Saturday or Friday. Sorry. Ryan, I see you chiming in. He said actually, if they all fall to the 5th round or later, do you want Brooks, Ant, or Leak? So that's actually a very good question, and that follows up my point of what I was just making about the Ravens potentially taking a safety. If Antoine Brooks is sitting there in the 5th round, potentially the Ravens make that pick. Like I said, I do think that the Ravens make a pick for a safety, but I think Antoine Brooks will be gone 5th. I think Antoine Brooks is probably a 4th round kind of guy. Ant McFarland, of course, there's the enamoration we have of him being a local guy and all that stuff. I don't know if he's the right fit for this offense. I don't think he'll get picked. And as far as Leak goes, I don't think Leak's going to get drafted.
I think he's going to go undrafted. Exactly.
I think if the Ravens pick him up as an undrafted free agent and bring him in and potentially a returner type situation, we could see that happen. All right, Scott, it's time for our rundown. We did this last week, just kind of a whole bunch of topics that we could find because there's not anything really significant going on right now outside of this NFL draft.
Our first topic ties right into Ryan's comment when it comes to the Terps.
Right. That's very true. So let's segue into the Terps news because there's not a whole lot going on. The one thing Terps related was Joshua Tomaic announced that he is going back into the transfer portal. This happened earlier in the year. There was chatter about him being in the portal, and then he pulled back. Basically what this is, it's just a positioning thing, right? He's got one more year of eligibility left. He wants to test the market and just see if he can increase the potential of his playing time. He's not an NBA prospect by any means. So this is it for Tomaic, right? So he's just looking for an opportunity to play. He hasn't turned his back completely on Maryland yet. He said that he could still pull his name out of the portal and stay at Maryland. So who knows what's going to happen there, but man, this really leaves a dark cloud over this team that they're going to need some serious help from the transfer portal because this leaves them literally Chol and Dante Scott is really their only 2 bigs left.
Right. And that's the thing about, him with going there. And I get it. Like, he wants to be a starter your senior year. Not really high hopes that you're going to be able to make it to the NBA in any way, shape, or form. Maybe G League if you got lucky. But at the same time, to your point, that scares me a lot. Dante Scott has been hit or miss, especially at the end of last year. I don't know whether his endurance is truly there, and I think that has a lot to do with his size. I think he needs to trim the little bit of weight and fat into muscle, I think is his big thing. But the thing that scares me the most, if Dante Scott goes down, to this point, I have no faith in what Scholl is able to provide this team. We haven't seen the minutes out of him. We haven't seen the physicality because of his his lankiness. And his fragility is, as far as I'm concerned, we're so worried about him getting hurt that's why I think he didn't get the minutes that he should have. I have serious worries if Tomaic does actually go away. Something's got to happen. Something's got to give here.
Yeah, I mean, other than him being 7'2" and having a 30-foot wingspan or whatever the hell he's got right now, there's not a whole lot to like about Chol right now. He, especially with everything that's going on in the world, he hasn't been able to put in the time and the effort with his team and to really work on fundamentals and stuff so far in the off season. I guess it's the off season. The season got cut short, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully he's, going through his weight training, putting on some weight, putting on that muscle. He's going to need it. But listen, the Terps don't have any other options. So right now he's going to be forced into a starting role. And that's where I'm concerned. This team, they've got some good pieces coming back, with Eric Ayala. That's Ryan's boy, Eric Ayala.
Yeah.
They do have, obviously Daryl Morcell coming back. They've got a lot of pieces that this team could still be competitive, but they've got to add size through the transfer portal. And so far, there just haven't been any prospects out there for the Terps to do it.
No,
They haven't been able to land any of the big names.
It just hasn't happened, and I think this year was probably their best chance at the dance, so to speak. So I think that really just comes down to it.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this picture up here, right? Because that's the other big sports story going on right now is a documentary. That's how sad the sports world is right now, that everybody's making a deal about a documentary.
You missed the segue, serve that I set you up for, by the way.
You broke up, so I didn't hear you, so I just kind of went off of it.
I said this was their best chance at the dance.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of dance.
Hey, there we go.
The Last Dance documentary came out this Sunday. It basically highlights the Bulls 97-98 run, the last year that they were together, that they won their 6th championship as a team. Last year, Phil Jackson was in Chicago as a head coach. I don't think you got a chance to watch it as of.
Well, I've seen little bits and pieces. I purposely recorded it because I want to watch it all at one time. Like, I'm one of those people, I don't like being like not sitting in suspense, but like I want more in that situation because it's a documentary style. So documentaries, I like to watch the full thing all at one time. So
oh, absolutely. I would have sat there if they would have released the whole thing like a Netflix special where they released all.
It's a binge.
I would have watched the entire thing. I would have been up till 4:00 in the morning. I wouldn't have cared. I watched the whole thing. It was that good. I mean, now you got to remember, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but when I was a kid, I was a big Chicago Bulls fan. We didn't have a team
Who
here in
wasn't?
Baltimore. Yeah, right. And I didn't have, any like. I rooted for the Wizards to win, and when Michael Jordan went to the Wizards, of course, I watched that. That was exciting. But in the 90s, everybody that was kind of the casual fan jumped on board with Michael Jordan and whatever, with everything going on in Chicago. And this was really cool. This was a behind-the-scenes look, an uncensored look. So the first time that they air this documentary, they're doing it uncensored. So you really get to hear some of these guys' takes and opinions, and some of the stuff that went on behind the scenes, some of the locker room stuff, the tension and whatnot between players and front office guys. The GM there, Jerry Krause. Like, yeah. I had no idea, and I was too young to understand that side of the business, that side of basketball. Right. But to see it and the total disrespect that the GM had for the head coach at the end, basically, after winning 6 championships, told the guy, regardless if you win 82 games next season, this is your last season as a Bulls head coach. And how Jordan reacted to it. It was really, really cool. Even if you're not a sports fan, the story behind it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's so enticing about this, is it's a little bit about what happened, but now you're pulling back the curtain. You're unveiling the Wizard in the Wizard of Oz. This is what you're doing with this, because let's be real. Phil Jackson was a wizard with how he handled this team. Right.
Oh, yeah,
when he saw how Michael was and how he was really, kind of a silent leader in the beginning and then turned into the vocal leader at the end, he was bringing him in on conversations about other players. Right. Because of what he brought to the table. And, you talked about it. They talked about Pippen. We're expecting the next one to be really more on Rodman. Right. And I've seen little clips about that. And it's going to be really interesting to see the full thing. I've watched little clips here and there that ESPN puts out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, but I haven't watched the full things yet because when I sit down, I really, truly want to watch it from beginning to end. I'm going to set aside, 4.5 hours to sit there and watch this thing all the way through because I do really think it's fascinating.
You brought up the Scottie Pippen thing. I think that was like the big story from the whole thing. The first 2 episodes was, again, I was pretty young, so I didn't understand the business side of things. I didn't understand the contracts and the financials at that point. I just knew who played for what team and who were some of the best players in the league and that kind of thing. And I remember in the 90s watching Scottie Pippen play and saying, not only is he the best number 2 in basketball at that time, he was a top 5 player overall in the league at that time. Top 5 overall. I mean, he was named to the NBA's top 50 greatest of all time players, right? He was a top 5 player all time. The big story out of this was he signed a 7-year deal with them for $18 million. 7 years, $18 million, which only paid him 122nd highest paid player in the league. He was 6th on the Bulls alone.
Right.
This is a guy that was the second best player on his team by a landslide, a top 5 player in the league, and he was the 6th paid player on his team. And that was obviously a spot of contention between Scottie Pippen and the front office. The front office didn't want to do anything about his contract, and they basically took the stance of, well, you signed the contract, you got to own up to it. It is what it is. And Scottie said, all right, I'm going to sit out for this year because I got an injury. So, yeah, deal with that.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, it was just kind of an interesting story behind it.
Do
So
you
if
know
you
how-
haven't seen that yet, go
Do you know
watch
how
it
the
for sure.
you know how the front office had to really truly react to that? Obviously they didn't really get into the front office side of things right as much, but yeah, wait, you mean we got to rely on Dennis? But it kind of
Dennis
worked out.
stepped up, man.
I would
I'll
say
tell
it
you.
kind of worked out.
Dennis Rodman, as crazy of a character as he was off the field, you know, he was, and
All right.
still is.
I got to flip it a coin here. Let's see which side you land on. Who's crazier, Dennis Rodman or Antonio Brown?
Oh man,
Right? That's a poll question for Twitter right there.
I'd probably have to say Dennis Rodman, because Dennis Rodman was just, I mean, he was so far out there and flamboyant, and he had all the struggles that he had mentally and still has, you know, mentally. He's a crazy case. But when it came to basketball, he's the greatest rebounder I've ever seen play. He's one of the best defenders
Yeah.
I've ever seen play. And he was just a high energy guy. He went out there and he had an attitude, and he'd throw the ball over the court. He'd get pissed off at the refs, he'd get pissed off at his coaches, pissed off at his players. But you never question this dude when he came on to effort on the court, because this guy gave it his all, game in and game out.
Sounds kind of like a B.
Maybe.
Just
Maybe.
saying.
Problem with him is he can't stay on the damn field.
No, he can't stay
That's
on the
his
damn field.
problem.
That's the difference.
So-
but
Moving on to another topic. This was something I know you were kind of following closely. I hadn't really heard a whole lot about it until you and I talked about it. Apparently, there has been some announcements in relation to minor league baseball teams and
yeah,
their alignment.
so MLB and MILB, or the Minor League Baseball Association. So the two of them have been in this like disagreement / argument. You know, the MILB has been pushing to keep all the teams on board. MLB has been saying, you know what, we have 30 teams in the league, 4 teams for each team. That's it. So, you know, call it a day.
Right.
And obviously the MILB does not want to do that. Don't want to lose money. But at this point, with the way things are going with the season, they're handcuffed. So long story short, there are sources on the MILB side of things that are saying tomorrow there's actually a call between the two. They're saying that they're prepared to accept MLB's proposal to cut 40 teams from the minor league system. That's according to CBS. It would be a concession on MILB to get down to 120 teams under the new, what they call PBA, or the Pro Baseball Agreement. So this would put a lot of minor league teams in jeopardy. One of which is being floated out there. There's ties to the story, but there's not exactly definitions of what the line would be and what exact teams. It's just all speculation at this point. But one of the speculations is the Frederick Keys for the Orioles being, you know, taken off of this. My thing on this is, from an MILB standpoint, if I'm pushing for a team to not be cut, it's actually the Frederick Keys, because they've done well and they've won a few championships over the past few years. They've brought people in. The problem is, on the flip side of that, you tend to have higher attendance at a place like the Ironbirds versus out in Frederick, and it's really comes down to,
I don't think they'll get cut.
it really comes down to distance, and that's kind of where everybody's lying on, is that it comes there. You know, they provide more money and they provide, you know, a little bit more there, but what are they going to look at? They're going to look at attendance, and they're going to look at the money afterwards, right? Somebody's going to – is it easier for me to follow somebody from Norfolk to or I'm sorry, not from Norfolk, from Aberdeen down to Norfolk and be able up and down the 95 corridor, or go out to Frederick, Maryland?
Yeah.
Don't know about you, but I'd rather go down to Norfolk than Frederick.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm okay with this movement. Does it suck to lose a team? Yeah, because the Orioles are absolutely going to be impacted by this. The Orioles have 5 minor league affiliations with Norfolk, Bowie, Frederick, Aberdeen, and Delmarva, right? The 120 teams, divide that by 32, it gets you down to essentially 4 teams per club.
Right.
So pretty much everybody's going to be impacted by this. As far as who they cut, I mean, that's a hard choice. I don't think Aberdeen makes sense. They're too new, and like you said, they have too good of a draw. It would be probably between Delmarva and Frederick.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, would be the 2 teams that they would potentially knock. But I'm okay with this if this means this bumps up the average salary for minor league players. In other words, if you're cutting down 40 teams and you're taking that salary and then applying it to these minor league players who have to have part-time jobs to be able to supplant income because they don't make enough to provide. I mean, like some of these guys only make $15,000 a year.
I would say a guy in AA is making a portion of what I personally make, right? And I know that it would be hard to get by in a house and all these things on just my salary, but at the same time, that's a AA guy. A AAA guy really isn't making much more unless he signed a major league contract and he's pulled down to the minors for whatever reason because he has that option. But most of these guys are making less than $60,000, $70,000 a year, even in the AAA level. Much less, AA and single. These single A guys, it's a hobby for them. It's they're having to put in so much work elsewhere. A lot of these guys, that's why you see some of them, the guys that propel themselves, honestly, in the single A level, have some help. Because, Hoyles, I think about as one of them.
Outside of your first, second, and third round guys,
yeah,
everybody really makes minimal, very, very minimal money. And there's so many players spread out across an organization. Like I said, you'll have guys that literally make $15,000 a year.
The only thing that I think this does from Major League Baseball standpoint is it actually provides a little bit more of an even playing field. And it hurts the Orioles to an extent, but it provides them a little bit more of an even playing field with risk versus reward. Some teams didn't have 5 levels, right? So they have to see a higher reward and lower risk in order to do it. Whereas the Orioles could go, you know what, we could put them in low A, or we could put them, in high A. We have our option of where we want to put them before we move them to AA. These other teams that had single A, AA, and AAA, that was it. Some of them had the additional single A. Some of them actually had the additional single A and then 2 AA teams. There's so much variation. I think, honestly, from a competitive advantage standpoint, it evens the playing field. It hurts us, but I actually, in the long run, I like it because now we have to be smarter and not just try to push guys through because we think that they need to be at that level, which is what we saw happen multiple times throughout the 14 years that we were losing seasons, where guys were getting pushed up. And really even, last year to an extent, we saw guys get pushed up that really probably shouldn't be in Major League Baseball.
And let's face it, too. The minor league baseball, in a lot of ways, is a lot of watered down talent. There are a lot of guys through every organization that never even sniff the major leagues. Like, they come in and they're lifers in the minor leagues, or they play 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues, never sniff the majors and decide to hang it up. This helps get rid of some of that watered down talent and really focus in on some of the high draft picks, the true talent. And maybe this speeds them up through the process, through the developmental process. Now they don't have so many levels to jump. You're not going level. You're not going low A, high A, single A, double A, triple A. You're now going single A, double A, triple A.
Or a guy that's going through, he really does really well at single A low ball, so they skip him up to double A. We've seen that a few times. And then it doesn't wind up working out most of the time. So you see that ability for them to kind of grow. I think that's a great point. The other thing to think about is why do people go to those games to watch talent? Some people do. You and I would. But some people just go to get out of the house to do something family. That's why they make sure that these things are family oriented. So now you're starting to pull it in by not having as many. You're focusing in the attendance. You're focusing in the efforts. You're paying these guys more. Maybe they're more willing. A lot of these guys are already willing to sign autographs and have fun, do all these other things. But you start engaging them more. Now you can engage them at multiple levels and really just goes up from there. And it's going to wind up paying out, not tenfold, but it's going to pay out a few folds for MLB for sure.
That's a great point. Well, before we sign off, I just want to say thank you again to everybody who tuned in for tonight's show. Just want to put it back out there that Thursday, round 1 of the NFL draft, we are doing the live stream with the fellas from Big Play. We're going to start probably between 7:30 and 7:45 and carry you all the way through the night, probably till after midnight, I'm assuming, with the way that first round always shakes out.
Friday's going to be a long day.
Yeah, they said that they're giving teams leniency with tech issues, so you might see 20 minutes between picks depending upon who's on the clock and who's having tech issues and all that stuff. So, like I said, if you want to build yourself a war room like all the GMs are doing, throw Birdland BS up on one of your TVs. We appreciate the support. We're going to make sure that we have the chat stream going in the live stream and trying to work in. We got 4 hours to fill.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to work in as many comments as we possibly can, really try to get your interactions on the show. Who knows? Maybe we even open a phone line or two here and there, just a guy take some calls in if it gets to that point. We'll kind of play it by ear. This is not a very formal thing. This is just going to be all of us kind of clamming together, talking football. All of us are super excited for this first round.
I.e., we're all bored at home.
Yes.
That's what it sounds
That's very true. And don't forget, as Scott said earlier, Friday, make sure you tune in. Make sure you follow, if you're not already, our boy SCG Sports on YouTube. He's doing a live stream collaboration with all of us YouTube streamers. It's going to be us. It's going to be Engraven. It's going to be Nubo. B-Word's going to be on there. I think a few other guys are even going to be on there, probably Garnett and SCG. So should be a lot of fun. Scott and I will both be on that feed. So make sure you tune in both Friday and Saturday. Or Thursday and Friday.
And don't forget, check us out on our website, www.birdlandbs.com. Obviously, all of our episodes are there. You can learn about us. You can also check out the Shell and Tell podcast. I know you guys have been working to try to figure out what to do for your next episode. There isn't a lot going on. So once they get back up and run, check that out. Make sure you get yourself some Birdland BS gear. Make sure you also visit us, obviously, bigplay.com, the Big Play Twitter page. Download that Big Play app. We're going to be live on those as well. So make sure you go check that out. Make sure you also check us out, birdlandsports.com. Also, make sure, if you haven't done it already, go make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. You can know when exactly we go live. You don't have to just be scrolling through your feed. You can find out when we go live. So make sure you subscribe to all those. At Fred BLBS, at Scott BLBS, at bartender_Blake BLBS. Or actually, I'm sorry, bartender_Blake. I always mess his up. I always throw the BLBS at the end. Make sure you go follow us as well. Make sure, if you want your opinion topic heard on the show, use the hashtag that's BLBS. As always, check out the audio version, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen. Just go listen, people. I don't know why I have to keep saying this every week. Just go do it.
Do it.
Thanks for tuning in, as always. We'll be back next Tuesday night with our version of the recap of the draft. We're excited for this. Fred, I know you're excited. I'm excited.
Can't sleep.
Tune in for the draft versions of the show, but tune in next week to hear us break down that draft. We'll see you guys at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. You know where to find us. For Fred, myself, and Brian, who I know has been in the comments, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
It's last call for alcohol.
It's time for the after party.
Oh, man.
All right, man. Turn off that eye on the rundown and then turn the eye on its call so you don't have to hit the button, but it actually gets down there for you.
Say what?
So, yeah, anybody that's still tuned in, if you got any questions, make sure you throw those in. We'll try to get as many of them as we can here in the after hours. I did see Josh come in late at the end of the show. Obviously, he must have missed the beginning part of the show. So he said, I think Murray is soft. Hope we don't take him. Who do you think we're taking? So I don't think Murray is soft.
I'm going to let you go here for a second. I got to handle something real quick.
Yeah, I don't think Murray is soft. I do like Murray. I don't think he wouldn't be my first pick now. Like I said, I'm higher on Patrick Queen by far than I am Kenneth Murray. But I wouldn't be disappointed with Kenneth Murray either. I think he fills an immediate need. But like I said earlier in the draft, for me, I'm looking more at offensive line here. That top tier of wide receivers is going to be gone. I'm looking Cesar Ruiz, or potentially an edge rusher like an AJ Espinosa, or one of those guys. Zach Bond. There's some holes in his game, but there's a lot of athleticism there. I like him too, so I wouldn't be too disappointed with Bond. But for me, offensive line, the depth there is super important. So I'd prefer Cesar Ruiz. Let's see. King, what's going on, man? Appreciate you tuning in. You have to go back and watch the show, man. We covered so much on today's show. Didn't expect it to go this long. TJ's got a question. What's your question, TJ? Get it in. Will the Ravens bring in another big name free agent this offseason? I don't know. Listen, the Ravens don't have a ton of cap space right now, and they got 9 draft picks as of right now that they're going to be drafting. So they got to use a lot of that cap room on those draft picks to sign them. Are they done making free agent additions? No. I think if this draft shakes out in a way that the Ravens don't get some depth help at edge like they're hoping they will, maybe we see a veteran signing like a Clay Matthews after the draft, somebody kind of stopgap fill them, maybe on a cap friendly type of deal, an incentive lative deal. But I don't see any kind of real big name free agents.
I was gonna say like that, like name somebody outside of Clay Matthews that's a big name free agent that the Ravens could use.
Right. Well, there's the guy from the Giants, another edge rusher. I cannot think of his name.
He's not that big of a name if you don't know it.
No, I do normally, and he's actually good, and I can't think of him right now, but I think he might be a little too rich for the Ravens, but he might be on a 1-year prove-it type deal too, and I cannot think of his name, but he might be a fit. Let's scroll up here to see odds of signing Antonio Brown. Slim to none. Like I said before, the prospect of what he can bring on the field is great, but there's so many question marks with this guy off the field. He's got domestic violence history. He's got rape charges and allegations, or not charges, but allegations going against him. Steve Bisciotti and this organization took a strong stance with Ray Rice. They're not going to change that stance now for an Antonio Brown, regardless of how much talent he is. I don't see the Ravens going down that path.
I was gonna say, let's be real. After that media call today, I'm sure, I am 99.9% positive, Lamar Jackson got a phone call that said, "Shut up."
Maybe.
We are not going after Antonio. I know you've been working out with him, and then we're fine with that. But you know what's going on there, and we're not doing that right now. Or something,
right.
Hey, that's above your pay grade. Here's how you answer that question in the future. That's what it would have been. I'm 99% positive that was the case for the exact reasons you stated. I do not see them doing this. As much as from a talent standpoint, I would like to see it. From the off the field standpoint, the locker room standpoint, it's too many. There's too many question marks. Way too many.
Going back to our discussion about running backs, with everybody kind of clamoring in about whether the Ravens would take a running back in the second round, like we talked about, the Hilaire kid out of LSU. Everybody was kind of on the same page with us. Yes, he's the right fit type of player, but not a need right now. If you're going to take a running back, take him in the 5th or later. Not a good pick doing that. Ryan, again, asking the question about Brooks, Ant, or Leak. Which we talked a little bit about that.
If anything of those, I'll say of those. If you want me to find something with those, you could take a flyer on Leak as an undrafted guy. A flyer.
Yeah.
Like
I said, an undrafted guy, they'll probably bring some guys in just to see if they can find some diamonds in the rough. Like I said, they need help in the return game. They did bring DeAnthony Thomas back, which he was serviceable, but he wasn't anything exciting back there. He held on to the football, which was a good thing. Cyrus Jones couldn't do that. But we haven't had that explosive returner since Jacoby Jones left, and that's always been a big part of our game, is being able to turn the field over and really gain good ground in the return game. We just haven't been able to get that.
Something to think about that though, right? And I could be wrong. You're more of the football expert than I am. I don't claim to know everything.
I don't claim to be
NFL.
An expert at all.
No, I'm saying you're closer to one than I am, because you're better with football than I am. But
okay,
I don't when I think of the NFL, right,
Mhm.
I can't think of a guy right now the way that I did with a guy like Bolden or Hester in the NFL right now.
Hester, I guess the closest thing to him as far as his shiftiness and dynamic would be like a Tyreek Hill. That would be
But
the
I'm saying that
closest.
returner. Like
Yeah,
Hester,
Tyreek is a returner.
well, but
I'm not
Ty-
saying he's
Tyreek,
he's not on the level of Devin Hester. Devin Hester
I guess
is
that's what
he's
my
like a greatest returner of all time.
right. That's what my point though with those two statements was Anquan was a good was a more than serviceable and a good receiver, right? But where could he really be a playmaker for the Ravens? He could really be a playmaker for the Ravens on a regular basis.
Right.
At that return position. And that's what Devin Hester was. And so when I think about that's what my point is I can't think of anybody in the NFL currently that is that explosive and dynamic of a returner. Devin Hester is a different fold because for him, he wasn't the most serviceable wide receiver. For whatever reason, he just
wasn't a very good route runner.
He
wasn't a very good route runner. His hands weren't the greatest, but he was a damn good returner.
But you tell him, hey, you find the route, he could find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the difference when you put a guy and you say we need you to find a route versus we need you to run this specific route. That's why he was so good. I guess that was my thought is there's just not that many out there.
So speaking of returners, Bryce chimes in. Good to see you, Bryce. Haven't seen you in a live stream in a while, buddy. So it's been a while. I know your job situation changed and all that, but either way, hopefully you and the family and everybody staying safe. Good to see you. He says wasn't happy with the Chris Moore deal. It just takes up a wide receiver spot. You and I kind of hit on this a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I have never been a big Chris Moore guy. He's gotten the opportunities now. You can't even chalk it up as that he hasn't had an opportunity. He has. The thing that Chris Moore brings is he brings value to special team, not just as a returner, but as a gunner. He's good. So there's, John Harbaugh is a guy that values special teams, but I don't think that necessarily the type of deal that Chris Moore signed commits him to this roster. If the Ravens go out and they find some diamonds in the rough in this draft and they bring them in training camp and they win those spots, Chris Moore will be the odd man.
They'll eat the money if they have to.
They will. It's not a significant amount of money. It wouldn't hurt them against the cap. They've got enough room to be able to make that deal. I think right now you bring him back because of his impact on special teams and because of the uncertainties at the wide receiver position. But I'm hoping that gets addressed in this draft and Chris Moore is a thing past.
Another thing to think about, right? So we saw what Eric did during the season last year, right? Think about this. I do not anticipate them going up. Some people are saying, "Oh yeah, go." They're gonna butt up against the cap number at the end, at the start of the season. I don't anticipate that because I fully anticipate come midway through the season, the cost is making some adjustments and some moves, especially knock on wood, somebody gets hurt. He's making some adjustments and being able to pull off some of these diamonds in the rough that he did last year. And he was able to pull off multiple ones last year. Some of these guys, we talked about this ad nauseum, that were sitting on their damn couch and wind up getting $1 million deal or, a league minimum deal and come in and make an impact and then wind up getting an extension. Expect some of that money to go if there's something that could get us over the hump and we can just pull somebody out of retirement or, pull somebody off a couch somewhere. It's quite possible.
I mean, to your point, you got to expect the unexpected, right? There's all kinds of factors that could happen. Players get injured, all the time. We don't know how this season's going to shake out, when it's going to start, how fast are players going to be rushed into action. They're not going to get the same OTAs and training camp time that they've gotten in the past. That's obviously not going to happen. So if there is a season this year, I think players are going to be rushed into a position where they're going to be playing a lot faster than they should be. And that's going to put players at a higher risk of injury. So yes, the Ravens need to have that little bit of money capped away in case they have to bring in, like to your point, a veteran, a role player, somebody who fits a need if a player goes down. So to Bryce's point, maybe you stash Chris Moore on the practice squad. You don't usually see veteran players like that go to the practice squad, but I don't see any teams knocking down the door to pick up Chris Moore either. So maybe that makes sense. You shift them on the practice squad, and you just keep them there for depth purposes.
If
but
somebody's doing that, they're picking him up off waivers for the exact reason that he was with the Ravens, which is the gunner position and being able to do that. I don't think it makes sense. The other thing I have to say about everything with that is that, I think I see the Ravens. The Ravens have to keep a minimum of 5 to 10 mil under the cap in case, right? The other thing that I think that I expect to happen, and I say expect, but I'm gonna foreshadow a little bit here, right? Let's say either a wide receiver isn't working out or they go down.
Mhm.
Probably going to catch some flack for this. There's a guy still in the market. He's still in solid physical shape from what I've seen of the videos and the pictures.
Are we talking about AB again?
Nope.
Oh.
Dez.
Yeah, so I think Dez is going to get signed. Dez is going to get signed after the draft once teams kind of have a better understanding of what their wide receiver core is going to look like. He's been working out with Patrick Mahomes. Does he go to Kansas City? Gives him, another weapon out there on the outside. There's even been talks about a reunion out in Dallas again. Does he go back there? I don't think he's a fit here. He's not completely out of the realm like AB is for me. AB
Right.
obviously is out of the realm just because of the off the field issues and the domestic violence stuff. That's why AB's out. Des Bryant, he's a character, but he's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things right now. He's putting in the work. You see that in the videos. He is a good possession type receiver. I don't think he makes this team that much better, but I do think, to your point, in a desperate situation where the Ravens are in need, if wide receivers go down, that's potentially somebody they look at.
Yeah, and I guess that's what my point is I honestly, I know that you're saying you think he gets signed. I'm not so sure that he gets signed. I think it's a desperation move for somebody who is looking to be playoff bound, right? And looking to fill a gap that winds up going down, or a gap that maybe never filled out, right? And so that's if I'm gonna go way bold here if this were to happen. Say Boykin just really isn't panning out this year. He's not panning out in training camp. He's not panning out in preseason. He's not panning out during the season. And Dez is still out there. I might consider those conversations and see how much Dez wants. And if I've got $4 million, I might do it. I might.
Listen, Dez is one of those guys. He turned down the Ravens previously on a contract, and I know every day that he wakes up, he regrets turning that contract down when the Ravens offered it to him. I think he's wised up in that sense. I don't think it's about money for Dez at this point. He just wants a 1-year shot. He could care less what he gets paid. Get him the veteran minimum, whatever.
I don't think it's a
get him in and just prove it type deal.
I don't think it's a prove it type deal. I think he wants a ring. I think Dez.
That's true too. He did say that was very important to him, was playing with a contender.
Right.
But at the end of the day, how many options does Des Bryant have? He can't be too picky. So if an opportunity presents itself, it's a league minimum type deal on a 1-year deal that he could come in and prove he could still be effective. Then maybe year 2, he signs with a team that's more competitive because now they're willing to take that chance on him.
Tell me why in the back of my head I just heard Dez to the Bucks.
Oh, no. Nah, they don't need it. They
already got a bunch of guys out of retirement or need to retire.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Who knows? Maybe. So saw another question pop up. Where was it? King asked. He said, "Do you think Judon could be traded draft night?" So I've been back and forth on this whole Judon thing, right? I thought that Judon was going to be a trade chip. I thought it was going to be a type deal where they would sign him, put him on the franchise tag, and then potentially move him. I even said a month ago, wouldn't it be funny if the Jaguars tagged Yannick, the Ravens tagged Judon, and then we swap problem child?
And then
right?
both tagged each other.
Right. And they both got tagged, but nothing's moved. I don't know if you saw this yesterday or not, but Yannick and it's not the owner. He's like the head of football operations. But I think he might be the owner's son. Went back and forth at each other on Twitter. It was super entertaining, but I'll tell you, Yannick did nothing for his stock.
He's
as
trying to
far
get out
as
of the Jaguars. That's
trying
what
to
it
get
is.
out of there. Right. But listen, the Jaguars are being smart for once. Like, they're not just getting rid of him to get rid of him. They're trying to find the most value that they can, which they obviously didn't do in the Jalen Ramsey trade and some of the other
All right.
Calais Campbell. Christ, we stole Calais Campbell from the Jaguars.
Right. So, all right. So I'm going to ask you this question then, because I think that's a great question, right? You trade Judon. Obviously, with the way Judon's playing, you need to get a first out of him.
Yeah, and that was to his point. I think let me see what the scenario was that he brought up, because I saw him say,
because I'm thinking like
something.
a first and maybe a fourth, and then
he said, would you trade Judon the 28th and a fourth? So you're giving up Matt Judon a 28th and a fourth to move up to number 11 with the Jets for CD.
No.
That's way too rich.
Yeah.
Am I giving up the 28th, a second, and a third to move up for CD? Yes. Then he also said, would you trade Judon for Seattle's 27th? So now you've got the 27th and the 28th pick.
No.
Maybe. I might consider it. It depends on how the draft shakes out. So if the Seattle Seahawks are willing to make that move at the last minute, when we get down to pick 25, we get down to pick 26, and I see two guys that would be difference makers on this team sitting there at 27 and 28, and I can have both, I might consider it. But you don't make that move unless you have a game plan or a player that you're targeting to replace Matt Judon.
If I'm doing a deal like that, here's the deal. I'm trading Matt Judon and a fourth for a first and a second, so that I go in with 2 firsts and 3 second-round picks, and I might even throw in the second, fourth round guy to be able to.
You're not going to get a first for Matt Judon.
Don't think you're getting a first at all for Matt Judon? A first and a fourth?
No, because he's on a
you just
1-year deal.
Tagged him though.
He's on a 1-year franchise deal. That's a big cap hit. Listen, do I think teams would trade for Matt Judon? Yes, but there's really not a whole lot of value in doing that, other than it eliminates other teams from bidding on him next year. So I don't think teams will give up a first for him. You'd have to give up something else along with Judon to be able to get a first.
I said a first and a fourth. Or I'm sorry, Judon and a fourth for a first and maybe even a second.
It'd probably be Judon and a third, or Judon and a second for a first.
Okay.
Is what my take would be on it. I don't know for sure. That's just what I would see if they were going to make that move. But like I said, definitely am not doing
draft night.
What's that?
I said anything is possible on draft night.
Yeah, right. We'll see. We'll see what happens on Thursday. So another question came in. I really want y'all's thoughts on Tom Flacco in the 7th round. They say he plays like Taysom Hill from New Orleans. I think we could make a solid backup. Would it be awkward because his brother Joe Flacco? And so we've already touched base on this. I said this last year about Tom Flacco, that I thought when the Ravens drafted Lamar, right? Because my whole stance with having Joe Flacco and Lamar was it didn't work because you had two totally different offensive systems, right? That was the conversation that we were talking about. You had a true pocket passer in Joe Flacco, and you had this wild card in Lamar Jackson, who's the most scrambling guy. Two completely different offenses. That's so much strain on an offense to have to learn, and you have to build the offensive line differently. Wide receivers have to block differently. Like, there's so much that changes from one quarterback to the other that I said at that time Tom Flacco was a guy to keep an eye on because of the athleticism that he brings, right? And obviously there's all the local ties with him to Joe and him Howson and all that stuff. So that's why that conversation got brought up. If Tom is there in the 7th round, I still don't think the Ravens make that move because they already invested a quarterback, or a draft pick and a quarterback last year in Trace McSorley. Trace McSorley is a very similar skill set to Tom Flacco. I think McSorley will eventually be the number 2 quarterback. I think RG3 will eventually get a starting role somewhere, or a starting opportunity somewhere when somebody goes down with an injury. And the Ravens will give him that chance because he's begging for it. He's basically put out there tweets that, he's just waiting on that next opportunity. And I think he's earned the right. And I think his role here, as far as a mentor for Lamar Jackson, is now over. He's done what he needed to do as a mentor for Lamar. I like the idea of Tom Flacco because of his athleticism and how he would fit this offense. But Trace McSorley is that guy, and I don't see the Ravens making a run.
Yeah, I don't see it happening at all. I think you hit all the nails on the head there. I think it just doesn't make sense. There's still questions if Tom's going to go in the 7th or if he's going to go undrafted. And he could potentially go undrafted because of it always happens. It's because of the size school that he comes from, right? It's because of it is Towson. While he has excelled at Towson, he's done well. Somebody's going to take a flyer on him either way, right? Either you take him in the 7th round to see what he can do and see if he's your future. How crazy would it be if Denver goes and gets him, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I could really see him being he is still somewhat of a project quarterback. If you're going to use him, he is a project. He is 3 years away from being, at minimum, from being an NFL starter. At the absolute minimum.
I don't see him ever being an NFL starter. I just think that he has a potential role in a system like ours.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of development. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, he has a role potential like a Taysom Hill in an offense that's built around something like ours or like what the Saints are doing out there in New Orleans with Taysom Hill. If somebody wants a gadget player like that, I think that's his role in the NFL. If he wants to be an every down starting quarterback, that's going to be in the CFL or in another league somewhere else. That won't be the end.
Fair enough.
So the other question, one more before we go, King had OJ Howard for a 7th. So obviously with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bringing in Rob Gronkowski, the Bucs already announced the other day that they were shopping OJ Howard around, seeing what they could get, kind of testing the market. So I should have known something was happening at that point, Gronkowski coming, but it didn't even dawn on me at the time. Do I take OJ Howard for a 7th round pick all day long?
Yeah.
OJ Howard was a 1st round prospect coming out of Alabama, a guy that I thought maybe the Ravens had a shot at going at during that draft.
And that provides you that 3 down back again that we don't have right now from that standpoint. Sorry, 3 down tight end. That standpoint, that allows you that ability now with a guy that has been able to be proven and can be physical.
Yeah. So Rommel Bryant chimes in, says, F OJ, draft Thad Moss. I'm just hypothetically, if OJ Howard for a 7th was the trade, I'm 100% taking that deal, giving up a 7th round pick for that type of talent. Absolutely. Especially as much as we rely on tight ends in the offense, we got rid of Hayden Hurst. We're going to need a body there. Thad Moss is probably going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. So now
easy.
You're talking draft capital, right? Like I told you, there's so much. The meat and potatoes of this draft is in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds of this draft. Do I think the Ravens need to spend a 4th on a tight end? No. This tight end
that's a 5th or a 7th round type situation.
Yeah, this tight end class isn't very good to begin with. Thad Moss would be a nice piece, but there's other needs within this team that I think would impact this team greater. That they don't need to add a Thad Moss. I like it. I like him. I like the prospect of him. He's Randy's kid. All that sounds great. But I just don't see the Ravens doing it.
Yeah, no, I don't see that either. I don't see it happening at all. So, all right, man.
Well, again,
go ahead.
Appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. Appreciate you guys staying in for last call. Make sure go get yourself some brew of the week at Liquor Stop, or get yourself a beer or whatever. Tune in. We'll be streaming it to ours. Big plays on Thursday, and then we'll be on SCG on Friday, and then we're going to figure out maybe doing something on ours on Saturday. We'll let you guys know. We'll put that on Twitter once we figure it out. So let you guys know. Thanks for tuning in each and every week. For Fred, myself, Brian, we'll see you guys next week.
Stay safe.